Yo, what's going on everybody? Today's video is going to be on a Carnevil Legacy of Nightmares setup for patch 2.4. The Legacy of Nightmares version of Carnevil has a lot of benefits over the Zuni version. For one thing, you don't have to tag enemies with a mana spender, which is great. You're able to stack a lot more toughness, not being tied down by a 6-piece set bonus. And then on top of that, your own character actually hits like a freaking truck now, man. Getting buffed by the Legacy of Nightmares along with your pets. So the first thing I want to do is go over the key pieces of gear that really make the build work, and then we'll get into the abilities, Kanai's Cube, and the rest of the gear and all that good stuff. So the first up we have the Carnevil, and that reads, the 5 fetishes closest to you will shoot a powerful poison dart every time you do. So you're going to have 5 fetishes shooting darts along with your own character's dart, and then the rest of the fetishes will be attacking in melee range, getting buffed by things like Tasker and Theo's, Mask of Jerem, and stuff like that. Now keep in mind that pets do proc area damage now, and from what I've seen in patch 2.4, it seems that area damage is fixed. So if that's the case, it's going to be a very powerful stat for the majority of builds, but especially for Carnevil. Next up, the Dagger of Darts, and that reads, your poison darts and your fetish's poison darts now pierce. And that's really what's going to give you your AoE clear capability in the build, along with area damage being procced by the fetishes. So really the closer enemies are together, the better. And that's really where Grave Injustice and Paragon comes into play, getting those mobs really grouped up tightly to maximize how many mobs you're hitting with your piercing darts and the area damage. Next up, the Legacy of Nightmares 2-set ring, and this is the Litany of the Undaunted and Wailing Host set. And that reads, while this is your only item set bonus, every ancient item you have equipped increases your damage dealt by 100% and reduces your damage taken by 4%. So really gigantic damage increase per ancient item, and some damage mitigation as well. And so it's very obvious that you want to have every single piece of gear ancient really before you try to run this build, at least at a high level. It's more important that a piece of gear be ancient than for it to be well rolled, because you're looking at a 100% damage loss if it's not ancient per item. Next up, the abilities. Poison Dart, Spine Dart. This is the Poison Dart that gives you mana back, and they've made it so that Depth Diggers actually work with the Witch Doctor now. So between Legacy of Nightmares and the Depth Diggers, your character's Poison Dart will hit extremely hard by running Spined Dart. Big Bad Voodoo Slam Dance, 20% more attack speed and 30% more damage. We're running Star Metal Kukri in the cube, so the fetishes will reduce the cooldown of this, giving us permanent Slam Dance. Piranha's Paragon, you'll get a damage increase out of this, but it's mostly to pull mobs together. Paired with Grave Injustice, you're able to cast this pretty often and really maximize the piercing from the Dagger of Darts and your area damage. Spirit Walk Jaunt for 3 seconds of invulnerability and movement speed. You could also run Spirit Walk Severance for more movement speed while you're moving in between packs of mobs. Next up, Fetish Army Legion of Daggers. You get 8 dagger wielding fetishes that deal physical damage. Now the 5 fetishes shooting poison darts will be dealing poison, and you're going to stack poison damage on your gear, and it's really just your bracers actually that you're going to have poison damage. So it's possible to run Headhunters in this spot, since it's a poison rune, to get that benefit from the bracers, but you're losing 1 fetish. You only get 7 fetishes with Headhunters, and 2 of those fetishes only deal 130% damage. So I like the Fetish Army Legion of Daggers rune better here. Soul Harvest Languish. This is going to give you a good bit of intelligence, and it's also going to reduce the movement speed of enemies, but the big thing is you're getting 10% armor per stack. And then you're also running Lacumbra's Ornament, the brand new bracers, that gives you damage reduction per stack of Soul Harvest as well. Next up, the passives, Swampland Attunement. You and your pets get 120 physical, poison, fire, and cold res for every enemy within 20 yards. And this gets amplified by your gold pickup radius. Now, in this build, we're not going to be able to utilize Thing of the Deep, and in a Greater Rift build, you can't really run Avarice Band because there's no gold dropping. So it's going to be pretty important to try to get somewhere between 8 to 10 pickup radius as secondary rolls on your gear. If you can get up to 15, that would be fantastic, but try to get at least 8 to 10. And then Grave Injustice, you get 1% of your max life and mana back every time an enemy dies within 20 yards, as well as reduce the cooldown of your skills by 1 second. And this is also amplified by your gold pickup radius. Fetish Sycophants, we're going to basically get an extra 15 fetishes here. This will proc constantly with all the attack speed that you have with your poison dart, spined dart. Spirit Vessel for a second life, and then the 5th passive with a Hellfire Amulet would be Confidence Ritual here. You deal 25% additional damage to enemies within 20 yards. Now, more than likely you're going to run a Hellfire Amulet in this setup, although if you can get a really good, well-rolled S of Johan to pull mobs together even more, then that could definitely rival the Hellfire Amulet, or maybe even be better. And at that point, you have to decide which 4 passives you think are the best. And I think these 4 are probably the ones you'd go with, although it is possible to probably drop Grave Injustice for the Confidence Ritual for more damage. But I think in the end, you're actually going to get a damage increase, even though you don't necessarily see higher numbers, simply by being able to spam Piranhas more often with the Grave Injustice to proc more area damage and make sure you hit all the mobs with your piercing darts. Next, the gear. For the weapon slot, we have the Dagger of Darts, which we've already discussed in detail. Ideal stats are going to be attack speed, which is your main priority, weapon percentage damage, intelligence, and a socket. For the offhand, we've got the Henry's Perquisition Kitty Cat Mojo. Ideal stats on this are going to be intelligence, crit chance, area damage, and fetish army damage. You could also roll Vitality on this slot if you feel like you need it, in place of either the area damage or the fetish army damage. And then in the Kanai's Cube, we have the Star Metal Kukri for the weapon slot, again reducing the cooldown of our Big Bad Voodoo Slam Dance and our Fetish Army Legion of Daggers. Ice Climbers for the boots. Now, these are what I prefer. I've seen a lot of people on the PTR running illusory boots in this slot to move freely through the mobs. And it's another potential option if you decide that's what you like better. For solo play, I like the Ice Climbers, although in a group, last season, Carnevil had some issues getting body blocked trying to skip groups to find density when you're running XP runs and stuff like that. So if you're running this in a group for XP, or possibly even in a pushing group, you may want to think about running illusory boots to make sure that doesn't happen. Depth Diggers for the pants slot, and this is really how our own character's poison dart is hitting so hard. And ideal stats are going to be intelligence, vitality, poison dart damage, and 2 sockets. If you decided you didn't want to run these, you could run Swampland Waiters, which give 20% more poison damage, so they're going to benefit the 5 fetishes shooting darts with the Carnevil. And then you could run a poison dart that is actually poison damage, like Snake to the Face or something like that. Next up, the Witching Hour. Ideal stats are going to be intelligence, attack speed, crit damage, and poison dart damage. Now, another option would be to run the Belt of Transcendence to get your Fetish Sycophants that way, and to open up another potential passive slot. But I think the Witching Hour is probably the better option. And then we have the Lacumbra's Ornament, brand new bracers in patch 2.4. The stats are going to be poison percentage damage, intelligence, vitality, and crit chance. And these also give you 6% damage reduction per stack of Soul Harvest. For the chest piece, the Aquila Cuirass, and you're going to get 50% damage reduction while you're above a certain resource threshold. It's going to be either between 90 and 95% primary resource, and you're pretty much going to have this damage reduction all the time. For the helmet, the Mask of Jerem, now you're either going to run the Carnevil or the Mask of Jerem on your character. Ideally, you're going to run the Carnevil if you have a good ancient one, and then cube the Jerem. That way, in the cube, you're going to get the 100% pet damage automatically, opposed to worrying about getting a good pet damage roll by wearing the Mask of Jerem. Now, with that said, if you have a good Mask of Jerem with 95 plus pet damage, then go ahead and run that if you want to. Stats-wise, intelligence, vitality, crit chance, and a socket. For the shoulders, Pauldrons of the Skeleton King for a second life. And on these, you're going to go intelligence, vitality, fetish army damage, and area damage. Now, you could also go for the corruption shoulders that roll 7 pickup radius, and they're craftable now. That's another option. You could also go for the Death Watch mantle for a little bit more damage. but I think the Pauldrons of the Skeleton King are probably the best. And then for the gloves, I think Tasker and Theos are pretty much mandatory. There's no other gloves that are going to give you anywhere near as big of a damage increase. And on these, you want Intelligence, Attack Speed, Crit Damage, and Crit Chance. Next up for the jewelry, on the rings, the Wailing Host and Litany of the Undaunted, on both rings, ideal stats are going to be a Socket, Attack Speed, Crit Chance, and Crit Damage. And then on the amulet, currently in this run, I was running a Rondel's Locket. It just happened to be the best ancient amulet that I had at the time, as crazy as that sounds. But what you're going to want is something like this Hellfire amulet right here, with Intelligence, Crit Chance, Crit Damage, and a Socket. And then the jewelry slot for the Kanai's Cube is the Convention of Elements. You absolutely melt elites and champions when this rotates around to poison, and then you're also going to get some benefit from it too when it rotates to physical for your melee fetishes and for your own character's Poison Dart, which Spine Dart is a physical rune. Another option, and something I need to play around with a little bit more, is potentially running the Short Man's Finger in this slot and running the Cold Gargantuans somewhere in the build. I'm not really sure what you would drop. I would assume it'd probably have to be Piranhas or Languish, one of the two. I don't think either one of those are abilities you want to drop, but it is something that I do want to test out at some point in time. Legendary gems. We've got the Bane of the Stricken, Bane of the Trapped, and then the third gem is going to be Simplicity's Strength for this build. Paragon points wise, get as much movement speed as you need, and then go Intelligence. Offense wise, attack speed, crit chance, crit damage, then cooldown reduction. Defense, armor percentage, life percentage, all resist, life regen. Utility, area damage, life on hit, resource cost reduction, and then gold find. I'll go ahead and leave my followers set up on the screen for you guys for a few, that way you can see what I'm running on the Enchantress. Now you can run the Templar or even the Scoundrel if you wanted to, but I like the Enchantress personally. Most people have been asking me to include that into my videos, so I'm going to start doing that at the end. So anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it helps some of you. And I really enjoy Carnevil with Legacy of Nightmares. It's a lot more fun to play than with Zuni. The whole concept of tagging enemies with Zuni was never enjoyable, and I'm kind of hoping they get away from that kind of mechanic for the sets in general. So thanks very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe as always, and check back in the next couple of days for a lot more 2.4 content. I got a lot of videos to make before Season 5 hits. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time.